Screen Slurps.
Hello, and welcome to Screen Slurps, the movie review podcast where we discuss everything that is good, that is bad, and that is savage in the world of cinema. I'm Adam Meisner, and with me this week, to no one's surprise, is my girlfriend, the one and only Laura Herlocker.
You can't get rid of me.
I cannot, and I will not. So,
well, that's good. You heard it here, ladies and gentlemen.
She's here to keep. And I'm not complaining. So we're here to talk not only about our relationship. Well, okay, we're here to talk about movies. Let's put it that way. And this week we're talking about arguably the best movie, Space Jam. The first one. I'm going to leave it at that. Space Jam: A New Legacy is actually what we're talking about. Space Jam: A New Legacy. And we're going to be talking about Space Jam: A New Legacy, and we're going to be talking about the original Space Jam as well. It's kind of a compare and contrast thing, so to speak. Who's better, really? Michael Jordan or LeBron James?
I think everyone knows the answer to that.
I hope so. And if you don't, then we're going to figure it out in the next, 45 minutes or so. So as we go on here, before we get into that, we're going to talk a little bit about what we've been up to the past week or so. It's a little thing we call on our show the Side Slurps, the Screen Slurp Side Slurps. Listeners, if you don't know, Side Slurps, it's what we've been up to the past week or so. It's not just about watching, Space Jam: A New Legacy. So, Laura, what have you been up to this past week?
Yeah. So I think it's become a tradition that I always mention the book I'm reading, since I usually read one a week. So I just finished The Silent Patient by Alex Michelade. He's Greek. So however you say that last name.
Alex
Michelada. That's my favorite kind of drink.
Slurp it up.
I don't think that's how it's pronounced, but we'll work with that. Really good, like a murder thriller with a really good twist. So highly recommend it. Read that. Another thing, I keep going back and forth between playing and not playing Genshin Impact. So the new update with the whole new world or region just came out yesterday from when we're recording right now. So I'm back into playing Genshin so I can explore the new world, and it's great and I love it, and it's such a good game, and it's free, which is amazing because it's so good and so well developed.
I mean, I'll have to play a little bit more of that game. I haven't given it enough of a try yet.
The world is huge. So that's what I'm doing, Game World. And then the other thing I just wanted to bring up was something we actually watched together. And that's the new Apple TV show, Schmigadoon, which the name itself, right, is...
It just sounds ridiculous.
And it is, but that's the point, right? It's so wonderful and so crazy. And I love it so much. For those of you that don't know what it is, it's pretty much a parody of Broadway musicals. So just like in Brigadoon, this couple played by... Cecily Strong and Keegan-Michael Key.
Yes.
I was like, which one? Key or Peele? But Keegan-Michael Key. They get trapped in this world, which is a musical, and they have to find true love in order to escape.
Yeah, I think in the first episode that we watched, the pilot episode, I felt a little bit debatable about whether or not it was going to be good or not. And it was a little iffy in terms of whether or not I thought it was funny.
Right.
But as it progressed, I think the humor really started to evolve as they sang more and more, and as the characters started to see more and more music start to come out of the town. And that's when it started to become even funnier, the more and more they were forced into these musical numbers.
Yeah, I think too, I mean... I've seen a lot of Broadway musicals. You haven't seen very many, right?
Not as many as you.
So I wonder if there's also that, I mean, I'm sure there is, right? That different viewer experience, whereas I can pick up on all the little Easter eggs or little hints towards musicals. I'll be like, oh, that's a Music Man thing, or, oh, that's Hello Dolly, that's Brigadoon.
Yeah, whereas, I certainly can't pick up on that.
Yeah, you wouldn't pick up on. So maybe that then is like a deterrence Is that the word I want? Why maybe, you know, it takes a little longer maybe for you to get into this show. But I think too, when you realize it's made by Lorne Michaels and essentially SNL, and then you understand what the type of humor is, you know what you're getting.
Yeah. Oh, certainly.
I love it. I think it's great. I'm excited for the next episode to come out. And that's it, actually. That's all I had on my Screen Slurps. That's the name of the podcast. That's all I had on my side slurps for this week. What about you, Adam?
Well, I was not feeling too hot this past week. I was a little under the weather, but I am doing much more superb now. I'm feeling much better. But in a little time that I was feeling okay, I had some time to go to a tattoo convention over the weekend. And no, I did not get any tattoos while I was at that convention. Unfortunately. But I did see some great tattoo artists. I saw a few tattoo artists from the television show Ink Masters. I know listeners, if you caught a few of the past episodes, I've been addicted to watching the television show Ink Master.
We do love it.
It's addicting. You get sucked into reality television so easily. If you watch any show that's like Ink Master, if you ever watch the show The Real World or anything, any reality
reality
it just sucks you in. So caught a few tattoo artists from that television show and many other tattoo artists, not from television, but just great tattoo artists
from
at this convention. From all over, and a lot of talent. So very cool to see that and walk around and see these artists actually tattooing people at the convention and just showcasing some of their artwork. And it was really cool to see that. And other than that, it's just been a few other television shows that I have been watching nonstop that I have mentioned before. Obviously, The Fairly Odd Parents, cartoon I grew up on. And more Ink Master. And that's really the big stuff. Other than that, I have just been diving, relaxing and digging myself into what Space Jam really means.
What does it mean?
What does it mean?
Welcome to the Space Jam.
Oh, what does it mean? Well, you know what? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk all about what Space Jam really means, and let's figure it out right now. So, speaking of, our episode this week is all about the brand new sequel to the original Space Jam film. It's the new film, Space Jam: A New Legacy, which was released very recently. It came out July 16th of this year, 2021, directed by Malcolm D. Lee. If you don't know Malcolm D. Lee,
he did Girls Trip.
Yeah, I don't know Malcolm D. Lee, but hey, if you
I was looking up his credits, literally the only movie. Well, he did Scary Movie 5.
I will have you know, I watched Undercover Brother. And that movie's hysterical.
Yeah. Well, Girls Trip is great. Like, that's a good movie, too. So I was kind of surprised. But he doesn't have a whole lot of credits under his belt. Maybe that was just really my understanding or my weak research skills.
I don't think you're in the wrong. I was looking at his credits list, too. And it's really like, he's no Steven Spielberg or anything like that. And that's not me trying to sound like a jerk or anything either. I mean, if you looked at Martin Scorsese or Spielberg's list or something like that, they've got a credits list that, runs down the wazoo.
Right.
And you look at Malcolm D. Lee's list and it's like, you got like 7 films
10.
or something
I
listed
just
there.
counted.
Yeah. Okay. 10.
Space Jam is his 10th directorial feature.
And that's not a bad thing. That doesn't mean that you're a bad director. We're just saying
he's just getting started.
You don't have very many films there.
Yeah.
So
he did do one of the barbershop movies.
Yeah.
That's also a bonus.
So that's cool. And again, we're not saying that Malcolm D. Lee's a bad director. We're just saying it's a very small credits list. But that's cool, Malcolm D. Lee. That's cool. We just weren't sure who you were as a director. Going on from that, though, this movie was directed by Malcolm D. Lee. And in terms of an actors list, the big actors in this movie, for the most part, you got LeBron James. So all the NBA fans out there, hey, put your hands in the air, LeBron James. Woohoo!
Ooh.
We've also got, and I'll stop myself before I keep going real quick. There are going to be many, many spoilers if you have not seen Space Jam: A New Legacy yet. Keep listening if you're okay with that and you haven't seen the movie yet. Otherwise, go watch the movie. So this is your spoiler warning. Moving forward, there is Michael B. Jordan and Don Cheadle in this movie. Also, many voice acting stars. So the actors I just listed are the main ones that you're going to see on screen. Otherwise, it is a lot of voice actors because the other people that are acting in this movie are the Looney Tunes. It's the Looney Tunes.
That's all, folks.
Oh, and did I mention anything that's owned by Warner Brothers is acting in this movie?
Yeah,
so,
Lord, we'll get to that.
We'll get to that. So, my gosh, I've got to know what your thoughts were, Laura, about the beginning of this movie compared to the original Space Jam, because Laura and I watched the original Space Jam from 1996. That is when the first Space Jam film came out, was 1996, with Michael Jordan, NBA All-Star Michael Jordan, who played for the Chicago Bulls.
Woo-woo.
Now, 25 years later, we have Space Jam: A New Legacy with LeBron James. Both of these films have very similar opening sequences. So, Laura, how do you think the original Space Jam's opening compared to the new Space Jam's opening? Do you think they were just the same thing?
You're referring to like the opening collage montage?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that it was like the exact same opening sequence, just a complete duplicate? Do you think one did the opening better?
Well, I mean, they're definitely very similar, right? And they did that on purpose, I think. The big thing with this movie is they were trying to make money off of nostalgia. I think that's really what they were going for. So there's a lot of throwbacks or Easter eggs or pieces from the original Space Jam that they brought into this one because they knew, you know, our people our age, we grew up with Space Jam, right? I watched it as a kid. So they knew we were one of the big audiences that would be watching this new one. And they figured, you know what? They probably want to see, you know, nods to the original. So at the beginning, definitely very, very similar, right? We have the main character in this one, LeBron James, and the old one, Michael Jordan, as a kid. And we kind of see their story of how they become the superstar, how they get to where they are in life. So we have like the scenes of them as kids with their parents, you know, kind of understanding like, this is what I want. I want to be a basketball star, blah, blah, blah. I got to work hard on it. And then it cuts to like in the opening title where we get that montage just of their entire career kind of laid out in front of us. And I do like that the new Space Jam did that as well, but they did add some little touches, right? So in the old one with Michael Jordan, it's literally just like clippings and images, very basic. But in this one, we've got some fancy special effects going on. You know, there's like, what's the word I want? Like electronic light-esque things when he's like dribbling the ball and things. They definitely made it more contemporary and made it fancier, which is what you need to keep the attraction of viewers these days, like kids or even people our age, right? Like we don't want to see the same thing over and over. So I did like the beginning and how they nodded to the original. What about you? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I thought that the opening sequence for the new film was a very nice nod to the original opening sequence because I really liked the opening sequence of the original film. Mm-hmm. And what I liked about the opening sequence of the original film was that it was supposed to be Michael Jordan as a child, and it was supposed to be him and his dad and Michael Jordan's desire to be a celebrity basketball star when he grew up someday. It was his aspiration to become a famous basketball star when he grew up. Like, someday I will be, you know, this famous basketball player.
And then I'll play baseball.
And then I'll play baseball. He was very specific about that, too. Like, first I'm going to be a famous basketball player, and then I'll play baseball.
Well, you know, they had to set up how his actual career went.
Yeah,
so.
He was very specific for a child. Like, I know exactly what I'm going to do. First it's basketball, then it's baseball. Like, I already know all of this. He's probably like 10 years old.
I mean, at least he played it out, right? When I was that young, I was like, I'm going to be a professional dancer. And that went out the window real quick.
I thought I was going to be a Pizza Hut man when I was a child. So, you know, that was my dream. And then I wanted to go to clown college. I had very strange dreams.
So at least he's stuck with his dream.
Here I am talking about movies. So I had a very strange twist in my dreams. regardless of that, Michael Jordan wanted to be a basketball player and then a baseball player, and he truly followed through with that dream. But I liked the transition that it went through because he was having those dreams. And he, said that to his dad. They're showcasing it with how well he's shooting hoops outside as he's, swishing the ball over and over and over again. And then it cuts to this scrapbook montage with this great music theme song and this credit, sequence on top of it. And I thought that was so cool. Now, in the new Space Jam: A New Legacy, it was pretty much the same thing for the most part. It's, LeBron James is a child. He's talking about his dreams with his mom, but it was more so his mom kind of explaining to him how that's going to follow through, of like, she's kind of already aware of what he wanted to be when he got older and how he can follow through with that dream. Mm-hmm. And he didn't really say a whole lot as a kid, but she pretty much did the dialogue for him about how she knew he wanted to be a basketball player. And if he wants to do that, then he's got to do X, Y, and Z to get that. Same kind of thing as the first Space Jam. But I liked it for doing that. I appreciated that.
I think the new one did a better job of giving us an insight into who LeBron James is. Right. So we see he's raised by a single mother who couldn't always be there to watch his games, which does have an effect on you as a child. Right. And then we see, too, he had this desire to play video games, to be a kid and have fun. But his coach was like, no, if you want to be great, you have to be focused 100%. And that's when he kind of like threw out the Game Boy, So I do think the new one gave us, like I said, a better insight into LeBron and how he got to where he is by dedication and focus and, really like sticking to his guns and working as hard as he could.
Well, that also set up how LeBron treated his son for the entire movie.
Right.
Because by doing that, by introducing LeBron James' character in the beginning like that and having his character want to play Game Boy during a basketball game, and of course he's playing a Looney Tunes video game on his Game Boy, and then he gets in trouble with his basketball coach, and his basketball coach is saying, you got to dedicate yourself to the game and you got to focus, and LeBron James throws away the Game Boy, and then it cuts to that scrapbook montage. Right. Then it goes to us, the viewer, finding out that LeBron James, his son, is a video game developer. LeBron James' son makes video games and wants to become a video game developer. And of course, LeBron James is completely against that. And
well,
LeBron
he just
James,
wants him to be like him, right?
Exactly. LeBron James wants him to be a basketball player.
Basketball is life.
Yeah. Don't we all think that? Don't we all just think basketball is life?
I'm not a sports person, so I don't know. But yeah, it definitely set it up to give us that initial conflict, right? The conflict we see between LeBron and his son Dom, who are kind of the two main focus, main focus of the film, I would say. Their conflict and the resolution between of them coming to an understanding about each other.
How did you feel about the ball shooting contraption that LeBron James owned in his backyard?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Can we talk about that? How fancy.
Can we own one? I mean, I wonder how much those retail for. It seems dangerous,
though. I mean, you just say ball and a basketball shoots out at you.
Isn't that like a normal relationship that people have with their significant other? Like you just say ball and they come towards you?
Adam, we were supposed to keep this PG for the kids.
Ball, and then they just run in here.
No, I wonder if those do exist. We meant to look that up. We'll have to do that after. Anywho's. So, I mean, I guess now that we talked about the opening, we should maybe just give like a brief overview of what happens in this movie, right? I mean, if you've seen the first Space Jam, you kind of get where the movie's going.
Yeah, if you haven't seen Space Jam, the original Space Jam with Michael Jordan, I highly advise watching the original Space Jam before watching Space Jam: A New Legacy. Yeah. I seriously advise.
I mean, not to spoil, but the original Space Jam is perfection.
Yeah.
And that's all. You don't even need to watch this new one. Just watch the old one.
We're not.
I'm sorry. I know I said skipping ahead, but I'm just kind of laying it out there.
Just to give a quick synopsis, we've been talking about the film, but just to give a very quick synopsis of Space Jam: A New Legacy, a summary of the film would be LeBron James and his young son, Dom, they get trapped in digital space by a rogue AI. And to get home safely, LeBron teams up with Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, and the rest of the Looney Tunes gang for a high-stakes basketball game against the AI's digitized champions of the court, a powered-up roster called the Goon Squad.
The Goon Squad.
Now, we're going to get more into that as we progress in the storyline here. We've been talking about the opening, but this is literally the synopsis for the most part of the very first Space Jam as well.
Exactly.
So, except instead of LeBron James, it's Michael Jordan.
Right. And he's not fighting for his son. He's fighting for the freedom of the Looney Tunes. Yeah.
So in Space Jam 1, Michael Jordan is fighting to save the Looney Tunes. The Looney Tunes basically enlist Michael Jordan to help them save their lives so that they don't
become enslaved to Danny DeVito.
Exactly. Become enslaved to Danny DeVito, essentially. And in the new Space Jam, it's LeBron James who needs the help of the Looney Tunes to save his son. So it's the opposite. It's LeBron James who's like, I need the help of somebody else.
Can we talk about, I read an article when I was looking up stuff for this, of reviews for the film, right? And they're saying like, Space Jam 1, so great. And you know Michael Jordan is amazing because the Looney Tunes recruit him. And they're like, new one, LeBron, he had the best he can get for his team to recruit are the Looney Tunes. Like, they didn't even ask for him. He asked for the Looney Tunes, you know? So they were like, so who's the better star? And I'm probably going to get some haters for this because there's a lot of LeBron fans in the world. But I'm just saying, Michael Jordan was asked, LeBron had to ask.
Gosh. Oh, man. But the one thing that really suckers me into this movie is the fact that Don Cheadle is the antagonist, and I just love Don Cheadle.
Though I will say his acting in this movie was not great.
Really?
Is that you don't feel that way? It was very cheesy, and I get
it was
probably
supposed to be cheesy.
I know, but it was a very cheesy villain.
But I think
I do love Don Cheadle, though. I love him to death. I just feel like the kid, Dom, was the best actor in this movie, other than the voice actors because they're amazing. But as in real people, Dom was like one of the best actors. I just felt like Don Cheadle was very cheesy and overdone.
No, I completely disagree. I think this movie as a whole is supposed to be completely unrealistic and super over the top. So I think
if he would have downplayed it a little, it would have been better.
No.
I mean, for heaven's sakes, his name was LG Rhythm.
Yeah, so why does he have to not be cheesy?
I know, well, it's just too cheesy. In my opinion, I just felt like it was too cheesy. And I hate saying that because I do love Don Cheadle and I think he's an amazing actor. I just think this movie was just it tried too hard. That's my overall. The movie tried too hard to be what it couldn't be, which is the original Space Jam.
I mean, I will say there's plenty of things about this film that I unfortunately did not like.
Yeah.
But I don't think Don Cheadle's acting is going to make that list for me.
Okay, well, that was one of my questions for you. So I guess we don't agree on the Don Cheadle acting.
No, I really do enjoy Don Cheadle. I think his character in this movie, it's an interesting one, but I do very much enjoy Don Cheadle's acting. And I think Don Cheadle's one of the saving graces for me in this movie. Actually, I mean, this movie as a whole has got many, many flaws to it, but I can't put Don Cheadle on that list.
No, I mean, well, we'll talk about it later, but I kind of agree. He would be the one reason why I'd watch this again, maybe. Even though I said his acting isn't great. I just love Don Cheadle. But anyway, so Don Cheadle, like I said, is LG Rhythm, right? And he is this AI that's created an algorithm, and he wants essentially to like take over the world, right? Even though he's like an AI computer. And so, and he thinks to do that, he can partner up with LeBron James. But LeBron is like, he comes to a meeting at Warner Brothers, right, to get pitched like this big social media campaign and partnership. And LeBron's like, nah, I don't want this. And the Algae Rhythm is upset and sucks him and his son into the serververse where he lives.
He sucks him into this serververse. And this is the beginning of when I start to think, all right, this is where the movie is taking a very serious turn for me in terms of this is when the movie is really starting to get way too cheesy. We were just talking about how the movie was a little too cheesy. This is when the movie starts to become way too cheesy, and you start to see how it's way too cheesy.
I get why they did it, though. Like, you know, the original Space Jam, the Looney Tunes world essentially is like underneath ours, under a golf course, right? But this one, all of the Looney Tunes and every Warner Brothers, whatever they're called, all of their movies, ownership, whatever, all the things they own, their pop culture stuff, all live in this serververse, which makes sense because we do live in a world of technology and everything is in the cloud, right? The cloud has everything. So I get why they did make the change. I mean, we've seen other movies do the same, right? Like the new Jumanji, that's all based in a video game, whereas the old one was based in a board game. So it's just the way they're trying to relate to a younger crowd who's always had that technology. So it makes sense to them.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people are comparing this movie now to movies or the movie, like movies that are like the movie Ready Player One, which that's
right.
What this is essentially just a clone of Ready Player One meets Space Jam because.
But like I said, a lot of movies are doing that now. The new Jumanji, like Tron. Well, Tron's old,
but this one
that's
takes
the same
it
kind
to
of thing.
this isn't even original though in that sense because it could have been LeBron James going into a computer and then it being all original content for Space Jam, where it's like, look at these original characters in Space Jam.
Well, Warner
in
Brothers
a Space
wanted
Jam
to
world.
play up their ownership,
and that is
make
my
the money.
distaste with this movie. That is why I started to think, okay, this is a little too much because, and that's why I would agree with comparing it to a movie that's like Ready Player One, because in Ready Player One, it's like, look at all of these video game characters from iconic video games and let's just milk it to, you know, like infinity, because all these iconic video game characters that we have all of these rights to, like I'll show you the characters from every Street Fighter game, I'll show you Pac-Man, I'll show you all of this.
And this did the same thing with Warner Brothers.
Yeah, Warner Brothers is like, look at all of this stuff that we have the rights for and
it was
that we
way
own.
Too much
we'll
product
show you
placement.
all of it. Yeah, product placement.
There was none in the original Space Jam. And the reason why the original Space Jam is so good is because it's just a movie about the Looney Tunes. You know, that's what it is at its heart. This one is not. This is Warner Brothers like, let's show off. Let's put everything we can in here. I mean, there's references to Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, Mad Max. They ripped a scene like from the film Mad Max, you know, and placed it in there.
And also LeBron James, when he first walks into that computer room and he gets sucked into the computer world, he walks into the room and his first reaction is, what in the Matrix hell?
Yeah. Which
that's
also
what you're saying?
is owned by Warner Brothers.
Yeah. And as he goes into that computer world, he goes by the different worlds of the movies that Warner Brothers has produced, one of which is The Matrix.
Yeah.
And the Harry Potter world.
Well, there's even the reference because, like, he's a Hufflepuff. And even, you know, they have to go out and search. So he goes to the Looney Tunes world and he finds bugs. But then we learn that all the other Looney Tunes have left. They've left Toonland. So then they have to go on this adventure to find them all. And the Toons are all on these other worlds, right? They find like Porky Pig and Daffy Duck in the DC universe. And there we see like Superman. We find Lola Bunny with Wonder Woman. I'm trying to think even where else.
Elmer Fudd's and Austin Powers.
Yeah, Yosemite Sam is in Casablanca. Like, you know, I feel like this is just Warner Brothers wanting to milk it for all that they can. And it's just, it could have, I feel like if it was done in a certain way, it would have been fun. But I think it was just so over the top that it was too much.
Well, and there's plenty of scenes that are all over the Warner Brothers studio lot where they're wearing Warner Brothers uniforms.
Yeah.
That show the WB.
Even once we get to the game that takes place, right? The entire audience is Warner Brother characters.
Yeah, you're showing, in
Clockwork
Hanna-Barbera, so they're showing
Orange.
Flintstones.
Yeah.
They're showing the Iron Giant. They're showing the Scooby-Doo
It just was
characters, the Animaniacs.
way too much. I think if they would have stuck to Looney Tunes like the original, it would have been, in my opinion, better. And I think maybe the movie should have focused more on them actually going out and finding the other Looney Tunes and like convincing them to return to Toonland versus like them quickly getting the Looney Tunes back together and then spending all this time on Dom Ball, which it's not even a basketball match that they're playing.
They're playing
it's
Dom Ball,
which is fancy basketball, right? It's all about style points and whatnot. I don't know, but yeah. So product placement in this movie, way too much, overdone, and it honestly is what ruined the movie for me.
Yeah, I completely agree. I just thought it was just way too over the top. I thought it was a little too much. And again, I mean, that may be a subjective opinion and to each their own, but I think that the first Space Jam did it right by keeping it original and not overdoing it. Because again, they kept it original. It was an original concept with Space Jam. They had original characters. And the only thing that they pulled from somewhere else was the Looney Tunes. It was just they brought the Looney Tunes and Michael Jordan into one realm, and then the monsters, the antagonists, were an original design. Really, I mean, Danny DeVito.
It's based off of in the original. Sorry.
Yeah, in the original Space Jam.
Yeah.
Danny DeVito as the villain, like the monsters there were all original villain characters. Right. So there weren't all of these other people like Scooby-Doo and the Mystery Machine and Iron Giant and the Animaniacs and the Matrix. They weren't all showing up in the original Space Jam.
Right.
It was just these original villain characters and Moron Mountain and Space Jam. It was all an original idea. And it was just like they were going to make the Looney Tunes a attraction for Moron Mountain to get people to come visit their amusement park.
And that's essentially what LG Rhythm, Don Cheadle's character, wanted to do with LeBron, right? So if LeBron lost the game, he would have to stay in the serververse and, perform essentially for LG Rhythm so he could get views and have everyone's viewership and it's in everyone's mind, right? But if he won the game, then he got his son back, as well as all of the other people that were sucked in while they were watching the match. Right. So essentially he was setting all these people free. Yeah. So I guess the conflict is the same, right? It's one party is gonna be put into enslavement or have their freedom.
Now, another thing I didn't think really lived up to the same hype as the first Space Jam with Space Jam: A New Legacy was the soundtrack for the new film.
Oh God, yes.
Because in the very first Space Jam with Michael Jordan, there is all kinds of memorable music.
Is amazing.
Yeah, they had original music that was made for the original Space Jam with Michael Jordan. Some covers that were made just for the score. And with the new Space Jam: A New Legacy, I can't think of a single song from the new film that stands out at all.
And supposedly Hans Zimmer did the music.
What?
Okay. So I was looking and it said Hans Zimmer was signed on with Chris Bowers. But then it was announced in January 2021 that Bowers would receive sole credit. So Hans Zimmer must have left somehow. He probably was like, I'm out of here. This is crap. So he's
like, this is some LGBS.
Yeah. So he's not credited. It's only to Chris Bowers. But yeah, Hans Zimmer's name was on it. But like you're saying, even the songs, I didn't know any of the songs in this movie. Is that just because we're old?
I don't know.
But the songs in Space Jam, right? We have I Believe I Can Fly. We've got that great song by Seal.
Yeah.
We have Space Jam. There's just so many good ones. And this one, I was really underwhelmed by the soundtrack.
Yeah, I mean, in the first movie, it's Seal's version of Fly Like an Eagle. Yeah, and the theme song for Space Jam, come on and slam, and welcome to the jam. Yeah, it's
everybody get up, it's time to jam now.
It's also good and also memorable, and they make the music match with the visuals so so well. And with this movie, I just don't feel
I'm
it.
looking now. I think maybe we're just old, because if you look at the songs for the soundtrack for the new one, it's like John Legend, Chance the Rapper, Brockhampton, Lil Wayne, SZA, Jonas Brothers. I mean, their names I know, but I guess I just did not know the songs. Maybe we'll have to listen to the soundtrack more, maybe.
Yeah, I'll really have to look into it, I guess.
But again, the music, I think too, part of it has to deal with, we grew up with the original, right? I mean, when we saw Space Jam for the first time, we didn't know the song, I Believe I Can Fly. Like, that was written for the movie, right? So maybe these are just newer songs, and maybe in 25 years, people will look back and be like, oh, the soundtrack for Space Jam: A New Legacy. I doubt it, but I mean, it could happen, I guess.
And then they'll also say, oh, it started on TikTok.
Right. It's a song from TikTok.
It's just a song from TikTok.
Anyways, the music is nowhere near as good in the new one as it was in the old, in my opinion. Acting's not as good. Music's not as good. And I was just sitting here thinking when we were talking about the plot kind of, and I realized the new one is literally the plot of Hook. Have you seen Hook?
Ooh, I don't think I have seen the entire movie.
In Hook, Captain Hook kidnaps Peter Pan's son and like turns him against Peter Pan, his dad. And then the whole time Peter Pan is with the Lost Boys trying to like train and become Peter Pan so he can fight Hook to get his son back. This movie is literally the exact same plot as Hook.
But there's no basketball.
No, there's just sword fights in Hook. And but literally, otherwise it's the exact same thing. And I did not realize that until just now when we were sitting here.
Moral of that story is...
Hook's a better movie. Go watch that.
Well, yeah, with Space Jam: New Legacy, it's certainly something to think about. I guess I also want to think about the scenes of this movie, because as I watched this movie, I was just so overwhelmed with all of the minor supporting characters in this film. And I say minor supporting characters because as supporting characters, they weren't even really supporting characters. It's just all of the characters that Warner Brothers just chucked into this film that we spoke about. It was so overwhelming, the amount of things that were in this film. My brain and my thoughts just couldn't even comprehend, for the most part, what I really should even care about at that point.
I was just about to say, aside from Bugs, even the other Looney Tunes had like no stake or no like part in this movie, right? Other than they did fun little things out on the floor during Dom Ball. You know, like we had that scene kind of where they're losing, right? As always, they have to be losing in this game. But then in the last few seconds or last quarter of the game, they win. And we have that really great scene with the coyote, Wile Coyote, where he has that like sorry, that was a tongue twister for me, where he has that multiplier, right? And it's shooting all these baskets, and then he gets sucked into it, and there's a bunch of him shooting also, and that's how they get up to the high score. And that's like the most you see Wile Coyote, you know, or even like all of the Looney Tunes, like I said, aside from Bugs Bunny and maybe Lola, because you had that like kind of great scene with her in Wonder Woman doing the test to become like an Amazon or whatever. They just weren't even really part of this movie. Yeah,
I think the difference between this film and Space Jam 1 is that in Space Jam 1, I think it was written so much better like an actual film would be written. And that is such a diss on this film's writing. But the first Space Jam is written like a real film where you can follow the storyline and the protagonist from one scene to the next and understand who to follow in terms of the story and what character you should be following and how scenes should be progressing. Whereas I think Space Jam: A New Legacy, I was watching Space Jam: A New Legacy more like I was watching, literally like I was watching a Looney Tunes cartoon. And my mindset in watching Space Jam: A New Legacy was just thinking that I'm only watching this film like I'm just expecting another stupid joke to happen.
Right.
And that's the only point I'm watching this.
The next little shtick.
Yeah.
The only part of this movie I was invested in is when Bugs Bunny dies. They kill Bugs Bunny.
That was the one moment where I was like, did they really just kill Bugs Bunny?
Well, I was hiding from you, but I was crying. I don't know if you knew I was over there crying because like they literally just killed Bugs Bunny.
That's what I mean, though. I felt like there was actual stakes in the first Space Jam for the entire film. I was watching with an investment in my mind where there could be actual stakes throughout the movie. This movie, none. This entire film, I watched this entire film thinking, all right, it's just, it's another dumb joke. Okay, it's going to be another dumb joke, and I'll keep watching this because, you know, there's going to be something funny that happens again. Okay, I guess that's kind of funny.
Until they threw that
and then
in.
Until they killed Bugs Bunny, and then my brain was like, did they really just kill Bugs Bunny?
But don't worry, listeners, he's not dead. He somehow comes back, and he's in the human world.
Because he's not an actual human, okay? That's how he doesn't die. I already warned of spoilers.
Well, I'm just saying, don't say he's not real. Bugs Bunny lives in all our hearts. No, honestly, though, I was crying when he died. So I'm glad they didn't keep him dead.
I was worried, man. You can't kill Bugs Bunny.
You can't. Honestly, that's what I was saying. Like, you can't kill him. You can't.
Bugs Bunny's like Santa Claus. You can't get rid of him.
Die. Yeah. Speaking of the Looney Tunes, though, one thing I really noticed and I read too is that they did very much desexualize Lola Bunny in this movie versus her character in the first, which I think was a good decision, though, because, you know, the current state of the world. I mean, I'm a woman. We don't need to go into that here. I think it was a good decision. She's still a love interest for Bugs. You know, that's still, we have that. But like the overt sexuality of her is gone. Not gone, but totally toned down. And I did appreciate that.
Yeah, that was probably a decision made for the best, honestly.
I agree. But there were some other decisions made that were quite controversial. So there was originally a scene with Pepe Le Pew that was cut because, you know, a few months ago, there was, you know, cancel culture around Pepe Le Pew because he is a bit overt in his advances towards the lady. So they did cut his scene, and some people were upset with that because even though they cut that, they kept in, like, you could see the gang from Clockwork Orange, right? And that gang like sexually abused and attacked people. And like, or Pennywise, right? He was there in the audience. So they kept in characters with very like, that did horrible things, but they cut out Pepe Le Pew. Like, a lot of people, I read that like there were people that were legitimately upset about that.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting that they would have characters like that in the audience versus Pepe Le Pew. They would get rid of Pepe Le Pew, but they would keep a Clockwork Orange in the audience.
Right. It was also interesting, too. I was reading. So I guess HBO Max kind of rebooted Looney Tunes, which I didn't even know. And once that reboot started, they had made a decision not to show Elmer Fudd or Yosemite Sam with guns because of the amount of gun violence in the United States. So a lot of people were surprised that they had their guns in this movie, right? Because they haven't been depicted with them since HBO restarted the cartoon. So I think that was kind of an interesting change also, and kind of a comment on, you know, movies always have a comment on the cultural state of the world, right?
But how do they show Elmer Fudd or Yosemite Sam without guns when most all of their cartoons show them with guns?
Well, because in the new ones, Elmer Fudd doesn't need a gun to fight with Bugs Bunny.
Not necessarily, but I mean in the classic cartoons.
Well, yeah, but that's the reason. The new one, the reboot.
Oh, I guess if it's a brand new
I think
series.
I think it's a new series that HBO started.
Interesting. Very interesting.
That's all the little fun facts I have about controversy. Just those. And the fact that they killed Bugs Bunny.
Oh, man. You can't get rid of Bugs Bunny. You just can't. Space Jam: A New Legacy is really a turn in the Space Jam.
I do think, though, the decision to go with LeBron James and keep it basketball was good compared to the other spin-off versions that they were thinking about and that were in the works.
Please tell me about them.
So, well, originally, they obviously wanted to do a sequel with Michael Jordan again. And
was it going to be golf?
or maybe baseball, since that was another part of his career. They kind of mentioned that in the original Space Jam also. But Michael Jordan decided he didn't want to do a sequel. So that was then cut off. And the company was like, well, if Jordan's not involved, we don't want to do it. So they're like, never mind, get out of here. But then they had some possible spinoffs, one with Jeff Gordon. So it would have been like Race Jam?
Oh my God.
Like NASCAR. One with Tiger Woods. So that would have been your golf jam. And also one with Tony Hawk, which I think would have been kind of
skate jam.
Yeah, which I kind of maybe would dig. I do like Tony. I feel like Tony Hawk's a cool guy. So that could have been an interesting take, like what they would have done with that. But I do think LeBron James in basketball was probably the best decision of the three.
Man, I wish there was a Tony Hawk Space Jam. That would be so cool.
It would be interesting. Like, what would obviously they'd have like a skate off. I don't know. Maybe in an alternate
I see
universe.
that now in an article from LA Times.
Yeah.
Skate Jam.
Skate Jam.
Oh, that would have been so cool.
Maybe there's an alternate universe out there where it happened. I don't know. Anything else, Adam, about the plot? Or, I mean, obviously, like we said, they win the game. Bugs Bunny dies. He gets his son back. And then Bugs Bunny shows back up and all is well in the world. Is there anything else in like the plot or anything that you wanted to bring up? Jackie
Chan reportedly was in negotiation with Warner Brothers to make Spy Jam in 2001.
I would have watched that. Jackie Chan's a great actor. I will watch anything with that man in it. Rush Hour, one of the best series.
Oh, man. Why can't we have Spy Jam or Skate Jam? Both would have been awesome.
Well, I think we've both kind of stated our opinions on this movie throughout our review, that it's not as great as the original. And honestly, reviews from film critics say the same thing. I don't know if you were looking up reviews, but it has a 32% on Rotten Tomatoes from the critics. It does have an 80% audience score, and I definitely think that's due to nostalgia. So people watching it and enjoying it because it does harken back to the original. But yeah, I trust the critic score on this one, 32%.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Roger Ebert says a 3 out of 4 right now.
Wow, that's high for Roger Ebert. I'm kind of surprised.
I mean, all things considered, Roger Ebert himself, unfortunately.
Obviously, it's not him reviewing.
But the people that work for Roger Ebert,
right.
it's them. But it is a 3 out of 4 from Roger Ebert. And yeah,
I'm surprised it's that high. Like a lot of reviews that I were seeing, and this is the way I feel too, right, is that it's generally negative reviews because the movie was spoiled with product placement by the studio, which we've talked about, and that it was kind of lacking the original film's quirky and like self-referential humor, which we are also talking about, right? Like you don't have the Looney Tunes as characters in this. You're missing that like quirky humor and like connection. You don't have that in this one.
Yeah, I don't know.
And even though it did kind of okay in the box office opening weekend, if you look at, I mean, the budget for the film was $150 million. And they, as of July 18th, the movie had only grossed like $53 million, a third of the budget. And I know it's still only opening weekend, but, you know, with most people watching it on HBO, I don't see it being a blockbuster, you know, a big budget moneymaker.
I'm also going to attribute that to the slow recovery process of people going back to the movies and the increase in movies still going to streaming services, though.
Yeah, I mean, they still do have to get money from HBO. I feel like they have to take that into account. I did see it was reported that 2.1 million U.S. households watched it on HBO Max the opening weekend. So that's a lot.
So at this point, I think it's time that you and I, Laura, go into our Slurps Up, Slurps Down section. and talk about whether or not we want to give this movie a what we call slurps up or slurps down. Slurps up means that we like the movie and we give it a slurps up, and slurps down means that we dislike the movie and we do not enjoy it. So Laura,
Yes.
would you give this one a slurps up or would you give it a slurps down?
Definitely a slurps down. I mean, I agree with other reviews. What we talked about, I think it was spoiled by product placement. It was way too much. So much so that it took away and you didn't even have actual characters that you connected with. And I mean, I'm not a basketball fan, so I don't really connect with LeBron James, but I wasn't a basketball fan as a kid either, right? So I didn't really connect with Michael Jordan in that way. But it's just like the humor and the way the original one was, you connected to the Looney Tunes. And I didn't have that in this one. I didn't feel like they could have not been there and the movie would have kind of had the same outcome, in my opinion. You know, they didn't have a stake in the film at all. So definitely a slurps down for me. I mean, I think people should watch it like strictly for nostalgia reasons. You know, go watch the old one, watch the new one, and for Don Cheadle. So for nostalgia and for Don Cheadle, watch the new one. But honestly, I give it like a 2.5 out of 5 slurps. And that half is only because of Don Cheadle. Otherwise, it would be 2. What about you?
Yeah, I would say because this review was quite a bit of a compare and contrast to the original Space Jam with Michael Jordan. For Space Jam: A New Legacy, I'm going to give this one a slurps down. And I say that because if you were to watch the original Space Jam that features Michael Jordan in it, that movie really blows the brand new Space Jam: A New Legacy out of the water completely, which is really unfortunate because Space Jam: A New Legacy, you know, it's a newer film. You would think that with, you know, sometimes with new films and new quality and everything new, you'd think, wow, it's going to be new and great.
Right.
But that's not always the answer, unfortunately. And that's exactly the way it is with this new film. So I've just got to say, the way it is with Space Jam: A New Legacy and LeBron James, unfortunately, I don't think that it delivers, with Warner Brothers milking the cow way too much with their franchise and their product placement in this film. I think it's just way too overdone. Mm-hmm. And I think that if anything at all, please go watch the original Space Jam from 1996.
If you haven't, I hope most people have.
Yeah.
Most people our age, at least.
If you haven't seen it yet, go watch the original Space Jam with Michael Jordan from 1996. Check that out. And also, even though I am saying slurps down on the Space Jam: A New Legacy, I would still advise in watching it. But first,
you need to watch it once.
First, watch Space Jam with Michael Jordan, then watch Space Jam: A New Legacy with LeBron James. I would advise that. But unfortunately, when it comes down to it, it's going to be a slurps down for Space Jam: A New Legacy from me.
Wah, wah, wah.
Meh, meh. That brings us to solo plug time. So, Laura, tell me all about where people can find you.
Yeah, I'm on TikTok at artielu, ARTIELU, or you could find me on Instagram at LHERLOCHER.
And you can find me on Instagram, on Twitter, on SoundCloud at Adam Meisner. I make music. I record solo stuff. I record original stuff. I even record covers from time to time. And if there's something you want to hear in particular, you just let me know and I will record it and I will put it online. And that wraps it up for this episode of Screen Slurps. Be sure to follow us on social media at Screen Slurps on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and now TikTok. And slide on over to Apple Podcasts and give us a 5-star rating. It will help us a lot. And if there's any crazy movies you want to hear about, let us know. Leave a comment on one of our social media pages, and trust me when I say we will be sure to talk about it. So, that's it. With no further message to say, I'm Adam Meisner.
I'm Laura Herlocker.
Slurps up, and we'll catch you later.